Ethan had always dreamed of traveling to the stars. As a young boy, he would sit at his window, staring up at the night sky, imagining what other worlds might be out there. He never thought his dream would come true. But here he was, on an intergalactic trade station, standing face to face with an alien. Her name was Lyra, and she was unlike anyone Ethan had ever met. She had an otherworldly beauty that took his breath away. Her skin was a soft, shimmering blue, and her eyes glowed with a deep purple hue. Her smile was warm, and her voice was gentle. Yet there was something mysterious about her, Ethan found. Himself drawn to her, unable to stop thinking about her even when they weren't together. Lyra was from a far-off planet, a place so distant that it was barely on the star maps. She told Ethan stories about her homeworld, a place of lush jungles and high mountains, where the skies were always painted with the colors of distant stars. Every time she spoke about her world, Ethan's heart raced. He wanted to see it for himself. They met often on the trade station, sharing long talks about life, love, and the universe. Lyra's intelligence and kindness captivated him. But it wasn't just her beauty that intrigued him. It was the way she looked at him, as if she could see straight into his soul. As the weeks passed, their bond grew stronger. Lyra would smile at him in a way that made Ethan feel special, as if he were the only person in the universe. They began spending more and more time together, and soon, Ethan realized that he had fallen in love with her. One evening, after a long day of exploring the station, Lyra took Ethan's hand. They walked to a quiet corner of the station, away from the bustling crowds. The stars outside shimmered brightly through the large windows. Ethan turned to her, feeling a flutter in his chest. "I have something to tell you," Lyra said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "I've never felt this way before. You are different from anyone I've ever known. I want to spend my life with you." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Lyra, I feel the same way. I never thought I'd find someone like you." Lyra's eyes shone as she smiled. "Then, will you marry me?" Ethan's mind raced. This was happening so fast. He had only known Lyra for a few months, but everything felt right. He'd never felt such a strong connection to anyone before. She was kind, intelligent, and beautiful. He couldn't imagine his life without her, of course, Ethan replied, his voice full of emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." Lyra hugged him tightly, and for a moment it felt like nothing else mattered. They were the only two people in the universe, and they had just promised to spend their lives together. Ethan felt like the luckiest man in the galaxy. As the days passed, the wedding preparations began. Ethan was excited but also nervous. He had never been married before, and the idea of marrying an alien, someone from a completely different world, was both thrilling and overwhelming. There were so many things he didn't understand about Lyra's culture, but she assured him that everything would be fine. She promised to teach him everything he needed to know. The wedding was set for a week later. Ethan couldn't wait to make Lyra his wife. The excitement in the air was palpable, but so were his worries. There were so many unknowns. How would their lives change after the wedding? Would he be able to adjust to the differences in their cultures, and what about their families? Lyra had mentioned her home world, but she had never really talked about her family. Ethan didn't know if they would be there to celebrate with them. On the day of the wedding, Ethan stood at the altar waiting for Lyra. The trade station's chapel was beautiful. The intricate alien designs decorating the walls, the soft glow of alien lanterns bathed the room in a peaceful light. Ethan felt his nerves settle as he stared at the empty doorway, waiting for his bride to enter. And then she did. Lyra walked down the aisle, her long, flowing dress shimmering as she moved. Ethan's heart swelled with love and admiration. She was perfect. He could hardly believe that this beautiful, incredible woman had chosen him. When she reached the altar, Lyra smiled at Ethan, her purple eyes sparkling. "I love you, Ethan," she said. "I love you too," Ethan replied. His voice thick with emotion, they exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other no matter what challenges they might face. When the ceremony was over, they shared a passionate kiss, sealing their bond. The crowd, a mixture of humans and aliens from all over the galaxy, cheered. It was the happiest moment of Ethan's life. But as they left the chapel, something unexpected happened. A figure stepped out from the shadows. It was another one who looked exactly like Lyra. Ethan blinked in confusion. How was this possible? Lyra smiled, but there was a hint of unease in her eyes. Ethan, this is my twin sister, Lyra. Ethan was taken aback. Your twin sister? He repeated, looking between the two women. They were identical in every way, right down to the color of their eyes and the shape of their faces. Lyra nodded. Yes, we are twins, but we are also very different. We share everything, Ethan, and Lyra will always be a part of my life. Ethan stood frozen, staring at Lyra and her twin sister Lyra. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. They looked exactly the same, almost like two copies of the same person. The only difference was the way they carried themselves. While Lyra's presence was warm and calm, Lyra had an energy that was more intense, almost like a storm waiting to break. Lyra smiled at him gently. Ethan, this is my twin, Lyra, she said, her voice soft as ever. Lyra gave him a small nod, her gaze not as warm as Lyra's. It's nice to finally meet you, she said, her tone polite but distant. Ethan felt his heart race. This was all so unexpected. He had just married Lyra, the woman he loved, and now there was another person standing in front of him, someone who was just like her in every way. His mind raced as he tried to process it all. Hi, Ethan stammered, trying to find his words. I didn't realize you had a twin. Lyra laughed softly, as if she had expected his reaction. It's not something I usually mention, she said. But now that we're married, it's important for you to know. Lyra and I are very close, closer than most people can understand. Ethan turned his attention back to Lyra. She didn't seem to share the same warm energy that Lyra had. Instead, there was an air of mystery about her, something that made Ethan uneasy. I'm sorry, Ethan said, still trying to make sense of everything. I didn't mean to seem rude, it's just, this is all new to me. Lyra's eyes softened. A little, don't worry, Ethan, she said. It's just, we are twins. That's how we are. We've always been together. Ethan nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling of confusion. How could they be so close? He had heard of twins being close, but this felt different. It felt as if there was something deeper, something that he couldn't yet understand. He glanced at Lyra, who seemed perfectly calm, as if this was just another normal part of their life. Lyra stepped closer to him and placed a hand on his arm, offering him comfort. Don't worry, Ethan, she said softly. It may take some time to get used to, but I promise you, Lyra and I aren't going to come between us. I love you, and that won't change. Ethan tried to smile, but the knot in his stomach didn't go away. I understand, he said, though he wasn't sure he did. But I'm just not sure how this works. I mean, how do you share everything? Lyra's expression softened, and she took a deep breath before answering. It's not like you think, Ethan, she said. We don't share everything in the way you might imagine, but we have a bond, something deeper than what you might have experienced with other people. We feel each other's emotions, our thoughts, even our physical sensations. Ethan blinked, unsure if he was hearing her right. You mean you can feel what she feels? Lyra nodded. Yes, exactly. And Lyra can feel everything I feel as well. We share everything, our experiences, our memories, even our pains and joys. And Lyra crossed her arms over her chest. It's not something that can be explained easily. We didn't choose this, it's just how we are. It's part of being twins for us. Ethan was silent for a moment, trying to process what Lyra had just told him. He had never heard of anything like this before. He had assumed that the bond between twins might be strong, but this was something else entirely. Could he really be okay with this? Would he always have to share his wife with her sister? He glanced back at Lyra, who was watching him carefully, her eyes sharp and calculating. There was something about her that made him uncomfortable. It wasn't just her appearance. It was the way she seemed to know everything about him already, without even speaking to him. He could feel her presence, like a shadow hovering just behind Lyra's light. I'm not sure I get it, Ethan said, feeling a bit overwhelmed. It sounds overwhelming and confusing. Lyra uncrossed her arms and looked at him more closely. It's not meant to overwhelm you, Ethan. It's just how we live. You'll get used to it. We'll make sure of it. Lyra nodded in agreement. We want to make this work, Ethan. We all love you, and we want you to feel loved too. But we do have our way of being. Ethan felt a deep sigh escape his lips. This wasn't what he had expected. He had married Lyra because he loved her, and he had wanted to build a future with her. But now, there was Lyra, standing in the middle of it all, sharing a life that he had only imagined for himself and Lyra. I don't know if I can get used. To this, Ethan admitted, it's a lot. I've never had to share a relationship before. I'm used to it just being me and the person I'm with. Lyra's eyes softened, and she took a step toward him. I know this is hard for you, but we're asking you to be open to this. We're not asking you to change everything about how you love me. Just be patient, Ethan. We'll work through this together, Lyra added. We'll take it slow. But just know, this Lyra and I are always going to be a part of each other's lives. And we'd like you to be a part of it too, Ethan felt. His heart raced again. He didn't know what to say. This wasn't the life he had imagined when he met Lyra, but it was the life he was now in. And somehow, he had to figure out if it could work. With a deep breath, he finally spoke. I'm willing to try. I don't want to lose you, Lyra. I love you. Lyra smiled softly. I love you too, Ethan, and we'll make it work. I promise. But as Ethan looked between Lyra and Lyra, he couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get much more complicated than he had ever imagined. Ethan woke up the next morning with a heavy feeling in his chest. He lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling of their small apartment on the trade station. Beside him, Lyra was still asleep, her soft breathing steady and calm. She looked so peaceful, so beautiful. Ethan smiled at the sight of her, but the events of the day before came rushing back to him. Lyra, her presence was hard to ignore. And the more Ethan thought about it, the more confused he became. He had married Lyra, but now there was this second. Parison, a twin sister who seemed to be just as much a part of Lyra's life as Ethan was. How could that work? How could they all share a life together without things getting messy? He turned to look at Lyra, her peaceful face bringing him some comfort, but still, the knot in his stomach wouldn't go away. He had never imagined that being with someone meant sharing them with someone else, especially someone who looked and felt so much like her. After a while, Lyra stirred and woke up. She smiled when she saw Ethan looking at her. Good morning. Love, she said softly. Good morning, Ethan replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Are you okay? Lyra asked, sensing the tension in his voice. Ethan hesitated. He didn't want to hurt her, but he couldn't hide his feelings anymore. I'm not sure, he said quietly. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything. Lyra's smile faded slightly. She reached out and took his hand. No, this is hard for you, she said. I can't imagine how overwhelming it must be. Ethan looked at her, trying to find the right words. It's not just about being married to you, Lyra. It's the fact that Lyra is always going to be here. You two share everything, and I'm not sure where I fit into that. I don't know if I can be a part of that kind of bond. Lyra's eyes softened, and she squeezed his hand. I understand. It's different for you, I know. But it's just how it's always been for us. Lyra and I are connected in a way that's hard to explain. It's not about replacing you or taking something from you, it's just the way we are. But I want you to be a part of our lives, Ethan. We want you to be with us. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing thoughts. I love you, Lyra. I really do. But it's confusing. I thought when we got married it would be just the two of us, starting a life together. But now I feel like I'm part of something that I don't fully understand. I don't know if I can handle this kind of closeness. Lyra looked at him with a gentle expression. You don't have to handle it all at once. We can take it slow. We don't expect you to just accept everything overnight. But we do want you to try. We love you, Ethan, and we want you to be a part of our bond with Lyra. It doesn't have to be perfect right away, but we can work on it together. Ethan nodded slowly, but doubt still lingered in his mind. How could he ever truly be okay with He didn't know if he could share Lyra in the way they wanted. He'd always been the kind of person who valued his own space, his own individuality. Was he really ready to give that up? The rest of the day passed in a blur. Ethan spent a lot of time alone walking around the station and trying to clear his head. He couldn't stop thinking about Lyra. There was something about her that unsettled him. She was beautiful, just like Lyra, but there was a coldness to her that made him feel uneasy. While Lyra's warmth was easy to embrace, Lyra's presence felt like a shadow, a constant reminder that things would never be as simple as they seemed. That evening, Lyra suggested they all have dinner together. Ethan agreed, hoping that spending time with both sisters might help him understand the situation better. As they sat down at the table, Lyra joined them, her gaze steady and unreadable. "How's your day been, Ethan?" Lyra asked, her voice polite, but distant. "It's been all right," Ethan replied, trying to keep things casual. "Just trying to adjust to everything." Lyra smiled warmly at him. "I know it's a lot, but we'll help you through it. Lyra and I have been together our whole lives. We share everything, and we want to share that with you. Just need you to trust us." Ethan nodded, but the unease in his chest didn't fade. He looked at Lyra, who met his gaze with an intensity that made him feel uncomfortable. There was something about her that didn't sit right with him. She wasn't like Lyra at all. While Lyra exuded kindness, Lyra's presence felt more like a challenge, like she was testing him, measuring him against something he couldn't understand. After dinner, Ethan and Lyra went for a walk on the observation deck. The stars outside glimmered brightly, and the cool air helped clear his mind a little. As they walked, Lyra looked up at him, her hand brushing against his. "I know you're struggling, Ethan," she said softly, "but I need you to understand that. This is something I've always known. Lyra and I have always been this way. It's not just a bond, it's a part of who we are." Ethan looked at her, his heart heavy. "I'm trying, Lyra. I really am, but I don't know how to fit into this." Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him. "You don't have to change who you are, Ethan. You just need to let us in. Let us love you the way we love each other. It's not a perfect situation, but it's ours. I want you to be a part of it. I want you to be a part of our life." Ethan looked into her eyes, feeling a deep mix of love and uncertainty. He knew he had a lot to figure out, but one thing was clear. He didn't want to lose her. He just had to find a way to make it work. "I'll try," he said quietly. "I just don't know if I'll ever truly understand it." Lyra smiled softly and kissed him on the cheek. "That's all I ask, Ethan. We'll figure it out together." But as they walked back to their apartment, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even imagine. Ethan woke up the next morning to the sound of soft footsteps approaching their bed. He opened his eyes slowly, finding Lyra standing beside him, her expression serious but kind. She looked beautiful as always, but there was something in her eyes that told him the day ahead wouldn't be as peaceful as he'd hoped. "Good morning," Lyra said gently, brushing a lock of hair away from his face. "We need to talk." Ethan groaned inwardly. He knew this conversation was coming. He had tried to push his doubts aside, but the tension between him, Lyra, and Lyra was growing harder to ignore. He sat up in bed and ran a hand through his hair, trying to shake off the lingering unease he felt about everything that had happened. "So far, about what?" Ethan asked, his voice a little hoarse from sleep. Lyra sat down next to him, taking his hand in hers. "I know you're still struggling with the situation, Ethan. I can see it in your eyes. I need you to know this. Isn't easy for me either. But Lyra and I can't keep pretending everything is fine when I know you're not happy." Ethan sighed, his thoughts still jumbled. "I don't know what to think, Lyra. I love you. I really do. But I just don't know how to fit into this strange bond you have with Lyra. It feels like no matter what I do, I'm always going to be the third person in this relationship." Lyra looked at him with understanding in her eyes. "I know it feels that way, Ethan, but I promise you that's not how it is. You're not a third wheel. Lyra and I love you, and we want you to be a part of our world. But I need you to understand something: we can't change who we are. Lyra and I are connected in ways that no one else can understand. We want to share that with you if you'll let us." Ethan felt his chest tighten. It wasn't that he didn't love Lyra. It wasn't that he didn't care about her sister Lyra either. But the idea of sharing his life so completely with two people was something he had never imagined. It was overwhelming, and it left him feeling like he was drowning in an ocean of confusion. "I don't know if I can handle this," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's too much. I've never been the kind of person who shares everything. I like my space, my privacy." Lyra squeezed his hand. "No, Ethan, but you're not losing your space. You're just learning to share a different kind of life. It's not about giving up who you are. It's about finding a way for all of us to coexist together." Ethan nodded slowly, but deep down he wasn't sure if he could ever truly understand their bond. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, mental. Lyra could feel what Lyra felt, and Lyra could feel what Lyra felt. There was no separation. There was no room for just one person to have the other all to themselves. "Have you ever felt like you were being replaced?" Lyra asked quietly. Breaking his train of thought, Ethan looked up at her, surprised by the question. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Lyra began, "when you love someone so deeply, and then someone else comes into the picture, someone who shares a bond with them that goes beyond anything you can even begin to understand. Do you ever feel like you're not enough? Like there's no space left for you?" Ethan's heart ached at the vulnerability in her voice. He hadn't thought about it that way. He had been so focused on his own feelings of insecurity and confusion that he hadn't considered how hard this must be for Lyra. She didn't want to lose him. She didn't want to choose between him and her sister, and yet it felt like that's exactly what he was being asked to do. "I guess I never really thought about it like that," Ethan admitted, "but I do feel like I'm always going to be the third person in your lives. I love you, Lyra, but it's hard to feel like I'm ever going to be enough. I don't want to take you away from your sister, but I don't know how to be in a relationship where everything is shared." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "Ethan, I love you, and I know this isn't easy. I don't want to choose between you and Lyra. I love both of you in different ways, and I want us to be able to share our lives without anyone feeling left out or forgotten." Ethan swallowed hard, trying to push down the emotions threatening to overwhelm him. "I'm not sure I can do that, Lyra. I'm trying. But every time I think I understand, something else comes up. Something I don't know how to deal with." Lyra nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "I get it, Ethan. I really do. But I can't ask Lyra to change, and I can't ask you to change either. All I'm asking is for you to be patient. With me, with us. We'll figure this out together, I promise." Just then, there was a knock at the door. Ethan looked up, startled. He wasn't ready for another conversation with Lyra just yet. Lyra stood up and walked to the door, opening it. To reveal her twin sister, Lyra stepped inside, her eyes immediately landing on Ethan. "Is everything all right?" she asked, her tone neutral. Lyra nodded, giving Ethan a soft, reassuring smile. "We were just talking." Lyra studied them both for a moment before speaking again. "I know this isn't easy for you, Ethan, but I'm not here to make things harder. I want us all to be happy. I love my sister, and I love you too. And if you're willing to try, I think we can make this work, but it won't be without challenges." Ethan looked at both of them, Lyra, who had always been his calm, loving partner, and Lyra, who seemed like a stranger, yet also someone who felt connected to him in a way he didn't fully understand. Could he do this? Could he truly share his life with both of them, accepting the complexity of their bond without feeling like he was being left behind? "I don't know if I can," Ethan whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "But I'll try. For you, Lyra. For both of you." Lyra smiled at him softly. "That's all we ask, Ethan. We'll take it one step at a time, together." As Ethan looked at the two women standing before him, he couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold. But for now, all he knew was that he was willing to try. For love. For connection. For them. Ethan spent the next few days in a whirlwind of thoughts. He couldn't stop thinking about what Lyra and Lyra had said. They both seemed so sure about their bond, about how everything they shared was part of who they were. But for Ethan, everything still felt like a giant puzzle with too many pieces that didn't fit together. He had always been independent, used to having his own space, his own life. Now it felt like that was being taken away from him. Lyra and Lyra shared everything, and Ethan didn't know where he fit into that world. Every time he tried to adjust, the weight of their bond made him feel more lost. On the third day after their conversation, Ethan decided to take a walk to clear his head. He needed to think, but he didn't want to be alone with his thoughts. For too long, it wasn't that he didn't love Lyra. He did. But the more he tried to understand, the more it felt like he was walking in circles, unable to find a way forward. As he walked through the quiet corridors of the station, he found himself in front of the observation deck. The stars outside twinkled as always, but tonight they didn't bring the comfort they usually did. Instead, they felt distant, cold, like the space between him and Lyra. Ethan leaned against the window and sighed. He tried to focus on the beauty outside, but his mind kept drifting back to the twin sisters. How could he share a life with them, knowing they had such a deep, unbreakable connection? Could he really be a part of that? Just as he was about to walk away, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning around, he saw Lyra. Her expression was soft, but there was concern in her eyes. "You've been quiet the past few days," she said. Walking up to him, "Is everything okay?" Ethan hesitated, unsure of what to say. "I don't know, Lyra. I'm trying to understand, but it's not easy. I want to be with you, but I'm not sure how to deal with this, the connection you have. With Lyra, it feels like I'm standing on the outside, looking in." Lyra's face softened, and she reached out, touching his arm gently. "I know this is hard for you. I wish I could explain it better. But it's not about us shutting you out. It's about us wanting to include you. We want you to be a part of our bond, Ethan, but we also know it's not something you can just accept overnight." Ethan looked down at the floor, trying to process her words. "I've always been the kind of person who values independence," he said slowly. "I've never had to share everything with someone else, and I don't know if I'm ready to give up my space. I feel like I'm losing myself in all of this." Lyra smiled softly, but her eyes were filled with understanding. "You're not losing yourself, Ethan. You're just learning to be part of something bigger, but you still have your own space. You always will. I'll never ask you to give that up," Ethan met her gaze, but the doubt was still there. "It doesn't feel that way. It feels like every time I try to get closer to you, I'm also getting closer to Lyra. I don't know if I can share that kind of closeness." Lyra's voice was gentle, but firm. "It's not about giving up your closeness with me, Ethan. It's about expanding that closeness. Lyra and I share everything. Yes, but we also want to share it with you. Not because we have to, but because we want to. We want to love you, Ethan, in the way we love each other. But we understand if that's something you're not ready for." Ethan stood there for a long moment, unsure of what to say. The truth was, he didn't want to lose Lyra. He didn't want to walk away from her. But the thought of sharing her with her twin sister in such an intimate way felt like a lot to ask. He didn't know if he could ever truly accept it. "I don't know if I can do this," Ethan admitted quietly. "I don't want to hurt you, Lyra. I really don't. But I feel like I'm being torn between wanting to be with you, not knowing how to handle the bond you have with Lyra. It's like I'm walking in a place where I don't belong." Lyra's expression softened, and she took his hands in hers. "Ethan, I'm not asking you to be something you're not. I know this is hard, and I'm not going to rush you. We'll take things one step at a time. If you need space, we'll give you space. But I need you to understand that Lyra and I are not trying to take something from you. We're just trying to bring you into our lives in the way we know how." Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of her words. "I don't know if I can be part of something so connected. I don't know if I can share you the way you want me to." Lyra gently cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Ethan, love isn't about owning someone. It's about trust, about letting someone into your life. Lyra and I are asking you to trust us, just as we trust you. But we're not asking for everything. We just want to love you, all of you." Ethan took a deep breath. He had to admit that he wanted to make it work. He loved Lyra too much to walk away, but he wasn't sure he could fully embrace the life they were offering. He didn't know if he could truly accept Lyra in the same way, as an equal partner in their shared relationship. "I'll try," Ethan said quietly, his voice filled with uncertainty. "I don't know how, but I'll try. Love you, Lyra. I just need time. Lyra smiled and kissed him gently on the cheek. That's all I ask, Ethan. We'll take it slow. Together. As they stood there in the quiet, surrounded by the stars, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't predict. But for now, all he could do was take it one step at a time and hope that love would be enough to guide him through it. Ethan woke up feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. The past few days had been a blur of emotions. He had tried to keep his distance, to think things through, but the more he tried to understand, the more confused he became. Lyra, and in some ways, he could see the bond she shared with Lyra, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something he was missing, a piece of the puzzle that just wouldn't fit. Lyra had been patient with him, giving him space, when he needed it. But Ethan couldn't ignore the growing tension between them. He wanted to make it work, but the idea of sharing Lyra in such an intimate, unbreakable bond with Lyra seemed like too much. Could he ever truly accept this? Was he strong enough? To be a part of something so different from anything he had ever known? He couldn't keep running from it. He had to make a decision. Much as he loved Lyra, he didn't want to live in confusion forever. He needed to confront the truth, whatever that truth was. Ethan sat up and ran a hand through his hair, thinking about how to approach the situation. He knew that avoiding the conversation wouldn't solve anything. The time had come to face his fears and find a way forward. He got dressed quickly, his thoughts racing. He decided to go to Lyra, to finally speak with her and figure things out. No more pretending. No more silence. He had to be honest with her, no matter how hard it might be. As he made his way to their shared living space, Ethan felt a knot in his stomach. He wasn't sure how Lyra would react, but he had to speak the truth. When he entered their apartment, he found Lyra sitting on the couch, her eyes already on him. She had been waiting for him, Ethan, she said softly, her voice filled with concern. I can see that something's been bothering you. You've been distant, and I know you're still struggling. Please, talk to me. Ethan took a deep breath. This was it. He had to say the words. Lyra, I love you, I really do. I don't know if I can be a part of this. This bond you share with Lyra, I've tried to understand, but it feels like no matter what I do, I'm always going to be the outsider. I don't know if I can handle sharing you with her the way you want me to. Lyra looked at him, her expression softening as she reached out to take his hand. I knew this wasn't going to be easy, Ethan, but I want you to know that you're not an outsider. You never will be. Lyra and I have always been close, but that doesn't mean there's no space. For you? You are a part of our lives. We want you to be a part of our world. Ethan shook his head, his mind still spinning. I don't know, Lyra. I've never been the kind of person who shares everything. I've always had my own space, my own life. And now, it feels like that's being taken away from me. I don't know if I can adjust to this, this way of life. Lyra's eyes were full of understanding, but there was also a hint of sadness in them. I can see how difficult this is. For you, and I don't want you to lose yourself. I'm not asking you to give up who you are. I just want you to try to understand that this bond, this connection Lyra and I share, doesn't take away from what we have. It only adds to it. Ethan paused, feeling the weight of her words. He loved Lyra with all his heart, but the thought of sharing her so completely was something he couldn't easily wrap his mind around. I don't want to lose you, he said quietly. But I also don't want to lose myself in this. I don't want to feel like I'm just a part of something. I don't understand. Lyra squeezed his hand gently, her voice soft. You're not losing yourself, Ethan. We're not asking you to be a part of something that makes you feel uncomfortable. We're asking you to trust us. Trust that we love you. Trust that we can make this work, if you're willing to try. Ethan looked into her eyes, seeing the sincerity in her expression. She wasn't asking for everything. She was asking for his trust, his patience, and his willingness to try. And deep down, he knew that he didn't want to give up on what they had. He didn't want to walk away from her, from them. I want to try, Ethan said slowly. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand it. It's not easy for me, Lyra. I've never had to share someone like this before. Lyra smiled softly, her eyes filled with warmth. You don't have to understand everything all at once. Just take it one step at a time. And know that I'm here with you every step of the way. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. wasn't sure where this journey would take him, but he knew one thing. He didn't want to lose Lyra. He didn't want to walk away from her, from the life they could have together. "I'll try," Ethan repeated, his voice filled with determination. "I'll try. Lyra, I don't know how, but I'll try." Lyra smiled and pulled him into a warm embrace. "That's all I ask, Ethan. We'll take it slow together, one step at a time." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew he wasn't alone. He had Lyra. He had Lyra. And maybe, just maybe, they could make it work.